Hi everybody, I'm sharing a few videos here and links and to express my thoughts around what's going on with this suggested mandatory vaccination programme that appears to be looming ahead in the not too distant future. So to start with, Children's Emergency Quarantine Centres, this is from Eamon Bundy from Washington in America, expressing his alarm and dire concern about the statements issued by the Governor of Washington now, who's claiming that they're doing tracing and tracking, and people who've had contact with somebody that's tested positive for COVID-19 are going to be visited by state authorities basically to force them to have tests and then put them into isolation centres and separate families as well, though he does say families can stay together unless they can't. So he doesn't give any details about why a family might not be able to stay together. We can only assume that means the parents have tested positive and the children have tested negative, so the children have to be protected. And we cannot ignore the fact that we're living in a world full of child abusers, and that all the authorities, especially authorities that have dealings with children, do tend to attract people that like to abuse children into those actual other professions where they get their hands on children, and they do tend to be organised. So as parents, as adults with concerns for children, we need to be shown some serious evidence before people start giving themselves the right to remove our children from our homes, from our care, and putting them into the hands of strangers. We need to be alert about that. We need to accept the fact of child abuse is a pandemic in this world, a pandemic far worse than COVID-19. Okay, balance. The law is all about balance and weighing up the risks. Which risks are greater to our child? Being badly impacted or even getting infected by COVID-19, or being handed over to strangers, to authorities, to who, where they might suffer serious abuse that will cause lifelong impacts on their psychological and emotional health. What have they given to prove to us that the risks against our children are greater by staying with their parents or going into the hands of strangers? COVID-19 has a 1%, less than 1% fatality rate. That does not justify the measures that are being taken. Now, the mainstream media are trying to spin narratives about how all people who are asking questions about what's going on right now are all right-wing fascists, Trump supporters. That is not true. People from all walks of life are asking questions. You know, we all need to understand we've reached a point of unity. The good people of planet Earth in every nation, in the sense of reaching the point of the true divide, the only divide between us as a species right now, and that is those who will stand up for a child's human, legal and constitutional rights, and those who don't. That's the only divide. And in standing up for our human, constitutional and legal rights, we're not black, we're not white, we're not a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian, we're not a male or female, we're not a Democrat or a Republican, we're not rich or poor, we are a human being standing up for our inalienable, universal human rights and universal law, and the constitution of society, the foundations for our societies that have arisen, the democratic foundations of our society that have arisen from those laws and rights. And no politician with a bill can erase those rights unless they have justification to prove that their bill is vital for our safety, for our well-being, that actually this bill is to enhance the rights that we have. Well, at the moment, they have not proved that. And we have absolutely no reason whatsoever to trust them about anything. So do be aware, okay, of the mainstream media game, which I will be exposing in a moment. But also realise that the alternative media, a lot of that is controlled, so be very wary. And one pointer now is, look, if you see an alternative media that's claiming they're lying about the figures, actually the figures are much higher than they're saying, or COVID-19, it's a lot worse than they're telling you. Okay, those narratives, understand immediately that that is controlled opposition media. It's shill media. Turn it off. Because we know for a fact that they're bumping up the figures, aren't they? Anybody dying with COVID-19 has died of COVID-19. But actually they're not testing for COVID-19 specifically. They're testing for coronavirus and assuming that it's COVID-19 in the majority of cases. President of Tanzania sent a variety of non-human samples to be tested at his test centres that have been set up there. How many came back positive? I mean, included among them was a pawpaw fruit. No, the person handling the pawpaw fruit did not have COVID-19. The sample was taken from inside the fruit. It came back as testing positive of COVID-19. He's basically thrown them out and said, no, sorry, go away. We're not having any lockdown. We're not doing any of this. As many African countries have already said no to Bill Gates' vaccine because, well, we'll get into that in a bit. So this is a very serious development. And then we have UK Column News, which is really the best news broadcaster to visit now for the real facts of COVID-19 and what's going on. And obviously the other videos I'm sharing here. Because according to Boris Johnson, by August or the end of this year, we're likely to have a vaccine. Oxford Research Centre, receiving funds from the Gates Foundation, no doubt, on top of funds from Britain that suddenly has got hundreds of millions to throw at creating this vaccine. You know, by a government that imposed austerity on us, you know, so concerned about our health, imposed austerity on us, and directly through that austerity killed 20,000 people a year. Suddenly I've got hundreds of millions, you know, to throw at a vaccine to protect us all from a new virus that has a fatality rate of 1% or less. And apparently they're going to do that they're saying it'll be ready by August or towards the end of the year. Well, you make your own judgments, people. My feeling, my personal feeling, is based on the research that I've done over the years and recently. There is absolutely no way, I'm 98.9% sure, that it is impossible to produce a vaccine against COVID-19 in less than 3 years, at least, I would say. Not ordinarily, as far as I understand, it takes 5 to 6 years before a vaccine, to trial and test a vaccine for the impacts that might be delayed, you see. Because, you know, 3 or 4 years after being vaccinated or something, it could turn out that this vaccine gives people cancer within 3 to 4 years. Oh, by then, it'll be too late, won't it? And we need to be very, very wary when the people giving us the vaccines are non-liable. They have no liability. The government has very kindly given them indemnification, as it says here. Look, governments will have to be involved because there will be some risk and indemnification will be needed. Bill Gates. Well, the coronavirus bill that Johnson's just published does exactly that for all hospitals, including the NHS, and the treatments for the people that manufacture the treatments, like the vaccinations. So, I will be refusing the vaccine. Does that make me a Trump supporter? No. Does it make any Trump supporters who stand with me, does it make them Democrats? No. It makes them a human being. We are all human beings. Now, as this lady states here in relation to the vaccine, you know, and again, I'll leave you this video. She's an expert. She understands. We know for a fact that flu vaccines, people have to have them every year. Because there is no vaccine. There is no vaccine against a coronavirus. You can't vaccinate permanently against a virus. A virus is not the same as bacteria. It mutates. That's why you can't vaccinate. So the vaccines are going to have to be constant then. Because a one-off vaccine is not going to achieve long-lasting immunity against the virus. And as with all viral injections and even bacterial vaccinations, there is a risk that the people being vaccinated will actually develop the disease they're being vaccinated against. There is also a risk with this particular vaccination against coronavirus that the vaccination could actually, as has been shown in SARS studies, as this lady explains, SARS-CoV-1, the original SARS-CoV, that the people being vaccinated against COVID-19, when they come into contact with COVID-19 externally as the wild virus, it will actually kill them. Or at the very least, they'll develop the worst symptoms and need to be hospitalised. That it will actually increase the virus's power in our body. There's that risk. We know for a fact that people who are vaccinated with the flu viruses, it only works, it's only got a 70% chance of working. Only 70% of people will actually be protected by that. 36% will go on to catch, either come down with the virus or spread it unknowingly to others. These are facts. And we need to think about these things. Because like I say, we're talking about being injected with a virus. Because that's the vaccination. Now, I think it's quite strange that I've been on a lockdown for how long? We've all been on this lockdown. And social distancing and constantly washing our hands in order that we don't come into contact with COVID-19 or pass COVID-19 on to other people. But now we're all expected to roll up our sleeves to have COVID-19 actually injected into our body. Literally going right into our body's defence system, altering our immunity, our natural defences, and the threat of forcing us to do that. Well, people who were terrorised and righteously resist being vaccinated, they run the highest risk of having the worst impacts of that vaccination, because their immunity will be lowered just by the levels of fear and stress that forcing them to have a vaccination will put them through. And that's why it is a very serious matter if people are being vaccinated against their will, because you're going right into their immunity, into the immunity of people whose immunity will be at that moment paralysed through fear and stress. And any medic who puts their name to that, you have got no business calling yourself a medical expert or professional. You deserve to be stripped of all your credentials, because it is a known fact that stress lowers immunity. And you're talking about forcing people against their wishes, against their beliefs, in denial of their own intelligence, treating them like an animal, like cattle in the farmer's field. Which, personally, being a vegan, I wouldn't even treat cattle like that. But that is a serious risk to people. And we do not know what these vaccines will do. So, personally, I will be saying no. And I defy anybody to violate my human rights. They will have to do it at point of a gun, and actually I'd rather them shoot me dead than for me to save my life, to submit myself to basically being raped. I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. To me, that is a form of rape, when this vaccine is at the behest and order of a man like Bill Gates, who fraternises with paedophiles. Okay? He was friends with Epstein, travelled on his private jet before and after the guy was convicted of paedophilia. And we all know what all of that involved and who it involves and the kind of people, the richest people on earth. Who are the richest people on earth? Well, we've got 3 of them here, haven't we? 8 billionaires have amassed half the world's wealth. That itself is proof that those 8 billionaires are criminals. Because how is it possible to have a conscience, intelligence, compassion, to be a full, whole human being and amass half the world's wealth on a planet where people are struggling, where life is struggling? A planet that is being destroyed by the corporations that the 8 billionaires control and profit from. Oh, and they're blaming humanity for it. You know, he's always there with the trope, the too many people trope. Never mind that the too many people they've been thieving off to amass half the world's wealth. Thieving off countries like Africa. So what did he do? What does he do? A multi-billionaire. Does he go to Africa and start providing fresh water for people and to improve their health? Providing schools, education centres, homes, housing? No, no, no. He goes there basically experimenting on them with his vaccines. Children have been permanently maimed and died, and people, through his vaccines. Is it, let me see if I've got the video. Is it this lady? I don't know if I can find it. Yes. This lady in Italian Parliament, she stood up, she said, if Bill Gates comes to Italy, arrest him for crimes against humanity. And I'll leave you this video. And she's right. She's right, what he's done. And, you know, he presents himself, oh, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they present themselves such nice people, caring about the children of Africa and Asia. Going around vaccinating them, sterilising them, injecting contraceptives into them, giving children polio through their polio vaccine, to the extent that there's more cases, that the vast majority of polio cases now in Africa and India are due to the vaccine itself. And we're going to trust him. We're going to trust that. I'm not going to trust them. Personally, on a balanced, informed opinion, the risks that the government and its bill, the power that it's giving it, it's giving itself with the powers of its bill, okay, those risks are far greater, present a far greater risk to me than me giving up my human, constitutional and legal rights. And until they can prove that their suggested risk outweighs the risk posed by me maintaining and standing up for my rights, legally, they've not got a leg to stand on because there's no balance. Sorry, go away. And we have a right to do that. And like I say, we are all one and the same human beings, and that's the point where we unite, regardless. No, you're not a police officer. You're not a nurse. You're not a road sweeper. You're not a cleaner. You're a human being. Where do you stand? Do you stand up for your rights or not? Are you going to stand by media spin, regardless of where it's coming from? Politicians, pontifications and lies and playing games? Or are you going to stand up for your human rights? And, you know, as I've stated here, and And this is just an example of the psyop that's been going on. Herd immunity. Boris was right. He knew he was right. The liar was ordered to tell the truth. So, the media, appearing as opposition, see, controlled opposition, so the media could spin the lie and get everyone to be complicit in scrapping our human rights. Boris equals farmer. Media equals sheepdogs. It's called social engineering equals psyop. And I've stated here, history will review this pandemic as a mass global social engineering psyop in which lies, confusions and paranoia on both sides of the political divides led to democracy giving way to the kind of social and political strategies as favoured by communist China, and thereby facilitating public consent for scrapping all of our hard-won human, legal and democratic rights and dumping an even bigger, already unrepayable debt and 1984-style control over ever-decreasing future generations who will spit on the graves of those who fail to stand by sense, balance and sanity. And I tell you now, those future generations, their hearts are our heaven and their contempt is our hell. So think about where you want to be, your memory, the memory of your life being, your soul, your spirit. Who is it going to be with? What life is it going to be with in the future? Is it going to be with the contempt of humanity or within the love of humanity? How do I remember my grandfather who gave his life for my human rights? With love. No one is going to force me to have a paedopal's experimental Nazi effing vaccine. End of. I would rather be dead. As a CSA survivor with autoimmune and complex PTSD, I've had enough efforts controlling my life, and no, allegedly, democratic government is going to continue in that process. I have human rights. My granddad faced bombs and bullets for them. I am happy to face an effing virus. If it kills me, so be it. At least the children will still have their rights long after the virus has passed. We all die of something. Because like I say, for me personally, it will be a violation. And it is an abomination, as I've described this bill, an act of tyranny. And I think people of colour, there does need to be alert, because I think they are especially at risk right now, and especially of any vaccine, when we consider how many, you know, that people have been locked in their homes for how long. So people haven't been getting sunlight. People haven't been developing vitamin D3. Okay? Do people even have enough vitamin C in their bodies to absorb vitamin D3? And when you're talking about people of colour living in the Northern Hemisphere, they need, well, as is explained here, darker skin colour is a known cause of lowered vitamin D3 in countries where climate is not conducive to maintaining healthy levels of human vitamin D3 absorption via the natural sunlight levels darker skin colours have evolved to thrive under. Lack of vitamin C and a minimised absorption of vitamin D3 coupled with a high sugar diet are very likely why the black population of USA, for example, are suffering a statistically proven greater impact of the worst symptoms via COVID-19. Included in this result are the levels of poverty and resulting stress the USA black population are traditionally and presently experiencing in terms also of racial inequality and what amounts to state-enforced persecution. Stress lowers immunity. Every medic worth their salt knows that. The pandemic seems to be hitting people of colour the hardest. So in Michigan, 14.1% of the state population are black. But an ungodly 40% of coronavirus deaths. So I would say people of colour receiving this virus now in the form of a vaccine are going to be placed even more at risk. And it is absolutely despicable that, knowing what we know today, that people have been locked in their homes during risks of a virus, but they have not been given vitamin D3 supplements, and especially not to people of colour, to black people. And, you know, as I've stated here, all such evidence does now need to be professionally accepted as valid, and we do need to learn from such evidence in order to arrive at the most appropriate and genuinely successful courses of action for the purpose not only of addressing the impact of COVID-19, but also towards improving humanity's health generally, because that is how we will overcome all viruses. By having an improved immunity, which Bill Gates' vaccines and any vaccines by Big Pharma don't appear to be improving, do they? Because, you know, they inject flu into us every year by the millions, and suddenly flu's around every year because they're reintroducing it back into the population every year, because it's a known fact that perhaps up to 40% of the people injected with the flu virus every year will actually spread that virus. But they've been making a nice profit out of it, haven't they? The 8 billionaires that own half the world's wealth, selling their Lemsips and cough medicines and sore throat pastilles and you name it. Culling the elderly now and again by who knows what they inject into the vaccines. But we know for a fact that in 2015 nursing homes were virtually emptied all of a sudden. The relatives know it. I hope they start speaking out, because they were phoning me up and nurses about what was going on in 2015 with the flu pandemic that actually nobody knew about, because the media were banned from actually reporting on it, and staff in nursing homes were told they weren't allowed to talk to the media. Yeah. Stuff goes on, people. And I personally, again, I have every right, according to the balance of law, based on facts and information and evidence, to distrust this government's narratives, and to distrust that they are concerned for my health or any of my fellow citizens' health, because they did have imposed austerity on us for the last decade, and directly through that austerity murdered knowingly 20,000 people a year. But suddenly they've got billions to throw at a vaccine and a pandemic based on a fatality rate of 1% or less, 1% at most, and initiated by actual falsehoods stated by the Imperial College. So again, on balance of law, sorry, Boris Johnson's government, you fall down. My rights are upheld. On balance of law. Now you can point guns at me and do whatever you like, okay? But you will accept you are a fascist if you are going to do that. That's fascism, and I'm in a dictatorship, and this is not a democracy. So bring it on, because I've had 28 years of dealing with charlatans and abusers and liars and criminals. Of facing up to the reality of what they inflict and dealing with the abuse of it as expressed through the people who get infected with it, who attack people like me. And I will be uploading another video after this one, and I do advise people to watch it. My last video is very emotional, and I express my outrage at even the suggestion that I should be forced to have a vaccine for COVID-19. No. We're not dealing with the bubonic plague. I'm not dealing with a government that I trust, that it does actually care about my health, that it's not on with some globalist coalition agenda. I have facts and evidence on my side. I am not coming from a particular political stance other than I stand with democracy, my human rights, my human constitutional and legal rights. And any government that is not upholding them is illegal and criminal. And any government that tries to remove them or undermine them and using falsehoods and subterfuge and fraud, sorry, you're a criminal. You're not a government. And then I have to ask myself, were you even democratically elected? Because there's evidence to support lawful suspicion about a postal vote rig, at the very least. So on every level, the law stands with me. And I ask the people of Britain, stand by the law. And the people of America. You know? Because at some point, we do have to question the script, don't we? When we've got Boris Johnson and Trump basically coming out with the exact same script. No lockdown. Let it run through the herd. And then the media appearing to oppose them by coming with the exact same script. No, we need a lockdown. We need a lockdown. And getting the people all het up. Oh, look, the media's opposing Trump. Trump lying, telling us all. Look, people. These are very serious times. Turn off your soaps, your TV shows, your games. Just for a couple of hours. Get yourself educated. Get informed. Get awake. Get aware. Be vigilant. Get on the ball. Because they're moving swift. They're like raptors. Operate by stealth. Stalk the prey. We're the prey. They've got agendas. They've got plans. These 8 billionaires. And the rest of them. At that trough. Who think they have rights to control and dictate our future. That Bill Gates thinks he's got a right to order my allegedly democratically elected government to forcibly vaccinate me. And even when you look at the virus, that it does appear to be made in a lab, okay, manufactured in a lab. By who? And who's been paying for this type of research? We know America was involved, Britain's been involved. So the same people who've actually created the virus, that we lawfully suspect of creating the virus in the first place, is now coming along to use that very virus to take away all our rights and force us to have vaccinations. This has got nothing to do with whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, a Labour supporter. As I say, it's got nothing to do with anything except, are you a human being, and are you going to stand by sense, sanity and balance and up for your human and constitutional and legal rights and defend the children to the hilt? Or not? Think about it, people.